Hello, everyone, and welcome to Compassionate Conversations. I'm Tanys, Coughlan, and I'm joined by my co-host, Heidi, Gagne. We have two amazing guests today. We have Alison Braun from Life Matters, and we have the wealthy yogini, Jacqueline Richards. Welcome, ladies. It's so nice to have you on today. How are you doing?
Thanks so much for having us.
Much appreciate this. Thank you, Heidi and Tanys.
It's our pleasure. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Alison? Let's get to know you both.
You're making me go first.
I am.
Wow, where would you like me to start? Do you want me to talk about my business first, or
whatever you feel? Yeah, whatever you feel you'd like to
okay.
speak about.
Well, I just moved to Ottawa a couple of years ago, and love the area. I've started a business called Life Matters, and it's all about empowering seniors to thrive. It's really building on lots of different things I've done throughout my career, working a lot with retirees, seniors, elders in a variety of different capacities, and that's just the demographic I love working with. So my services are a little bit all over the place, I'm sure. Well, the reason Jacqueline and I have teamed up, and we'll get into that later, is more about the aspect of retirement coaching that I'm doing. I forgot to turn off my phone. Apologies.
No worries. We all do that.
Yeah. So there's that's one aspect. Seniors health and wellness coaching is a big part of what I do. Just kind of working whatever someone needs. In some cases, it's working through forgiveness. In other cases, it's helping bring people back together, families, through my mediation services. I'm also an end-of-life doula, so that incorporates both the being there for the support and the accompaniment for somebody who's at end of life and their family, as well as grief coaching afterwards. And I also work in the community and with grief coaching as well. Just death is something that we don't often talk about in this society, and so it's something a lot of us need to talk about. We've gone through these losses, and it's really it's important for us to work through these emotions together. It's even more helpful. So that's something that I do for free, just in terms of workshops. I also give workshops in retirement homes that are more related to accepting those phases of life and getting comfortable with it, because we instilled a lot of fear in our seniors during COVID, and so just trying to relax that a little bit and just make it something that's comfortable to talk about. So I help seniors start businesses. I help seniors find volunteer opportunities, problem solve in general. So just however that looks, I help with advanced care planning, and the list goes on. Bucket list planning is another one of my favorites, but I'll cut myself off there.
Bucket lists. That's fun. I think we should all have one of those.
I agree. And you can't start too young.
No.
I have a bucket list already.
Good.
Awesome. That's great.
You know I'm going to ask you about that, Heidi.
Now, Jacqueline does vision boards, which are similar, right, in terms of
Very
that,
much so.
right?
Absolutely.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that and you?
Oh, see, I thank you. My bucket list, I have to call it a life list. I mean, buckets are great. I'd rather refer to it as a life list. So when I was with my little girl, who was at the time 4 years old, I wanted to know what I wanted to do with my life. So I sat down with her, and I had a pen, and she had her crayons. And I said, Marie, why don't you draw what you want now and forever, and I'll draw what I want now and forever. So my list, my drawings included being able to fly out to help people explore what they're looking for. And my messages, it was, I want to have a retreat that I can teach what I know people want to have. And then I drew Harlequin romance. I want to be a bestseller with a Harlequin romance. I read a lot of Harlequin romances. So I took a long, deep breath and we went through it. My daughter said she wanted to dance, but she spelled it in French because she was in French immersion. And she drew a spider because she was afraid of spiders and she wanted not to be afraid of spiders. And then she drew a house, like a big house, because that's her house that she wants. I still have it. It's on this little piece of paper. I can check off the things that I've done. Yes, I did travel with my book that became a bestseller, Yoga for Your Personal Finances. And no one had ever heard anything like it. Yoga for Your Personal Finances. I talk yoga, I talk money. And I had no idea that that was going to be my Harlequin romance. So I'm Jacqueline Richards. I help people talk about money. Exciting, right? Especially when you're looking to buy a home or refinance. Or wait a sec, it's called debt consolidation. Sometimes there's so much debt we can't breathe. We can't lift our shoulders, take them back, drop them down. And we think there's got to be options out there, but afraid to ask, too ashamed to ask, feel guilty about asking. And then you find me, who loves to giggle, who believes that we all have the opportunity to be open and honest and find someone who will be that way with us. So when I sit with people, they have no idea why they're sitting with me. Extraordinary things flow when they say, you know, I can't tell my family this, or this is the house I really want. I have a picture of the house I really want. So two things there. I have a vision board session that I'm going to teach. And why don't you come and bring that picture? And why don't we talk about the numbers? I have a calculator. They're not evil. They're not evil. 1 + 1 is 2. That we can do. So when I'm talking about money, it's about mortgages. It is about being okay with where you're at and knowing that there's help out there. You just need to want to ask. Let's sit down and have a cup of tea. And when you're looking for strategies for your mortgage money, you want to contact your wealthy mortgage honey. You're like, no.
That's great.
I got to tell you, at my I go to many events, and I always end with, when you're looking for strategies for your mortgage money, you got to call your mortgage honey. Someone says, I know people who sell honey. Do you want that? Would you like some? I said, oh, I love that. Anyway, so
dual branding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what
collaboration is key.
It's like, we all need, you know what, as long as people remember you. And thankfully with Tanys, she said, I know you teach yoga. I know you've taught the 200-hour yoga certification, and where's yours? Why can't you have one? She called me on that. And I said, yes. So I'm busy teaching a 200-hour yoga certification that is a year long, because that allows people to take a breath, lift their shoulders, and exhale completely. I'll have another one next year. I'm very excited about it.
It's an awesome class. I'm a student. So now you two have teamed up to do an exciting event. So why don't you tell us about the event, Alison?
And I was just pulling out this in case this is not the event, but in case I forget to mention this, we've also created a yoga retreat in the Ecuadorian Andes together. So I can talk about that a little bit later.
Yep.
But our upcoming event is on Tuesday, November 12th. So just in a few weeks. And it's open to the public. It's free. Jump in here anytime you want, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
You know, we've made it a really fun, punchy hour and a half. It's a workshop. We get people talking and working in pairs and visioning their futures. It's really directed at retirees, particularly within those, those early years when it becomes a struggle, when you go through that period of loss. And and so we're hosting this event. Do you want to take it from there, Jacqueline?
Sure. So my mom and dad are incredible entrepreneurs. And my dad said to my mom, "You're doing what you love. And so why don't you do more of it? And then we'll sell it. It'll be our business. It'll be great." And she said, "Wow, okay, that's going to be tough." She's a potter. And so, like anyone who does what they love, you continue to make more and more and more. And then people like me say, "Oh my gosh, you should go into business." 43 years of pottery where they've traveled, sold. I went into, I was meeting a client and I walked in with my coffee because I didn't want them to clean my mug. And they said, "Oh my gosh, how did you get in here?" I said, I just rang your doorbell. No, where'd you get that? I brought it in. I walked into their kitchen, opened the cupboard. They had a shelf of Bailey Brown pottery. You have no idea what your legacy is until someone knocks on your shoulder and says, "We know what you've done." We speak to that. Alison and I will be speaking to people who are taking their moments because now it's down to winding down. It's love to take a break, love to take the trip, want to stop making what we make. I know there's someone else who'll pick up the load, and Alison will help them take those steps into how can they make it happen? Who can they call on to make it happen? And of course, my mom and dad aren't hearing me say this, but they're getting tired. And it's that R word, retirement. It's that wanting to make more of their life. There's got to be more than 24 hours a day, making sure that you have what you need, which are items that people love, and making sure that the family come together and say, "Hey, let's hang out. Maybe we should travel." And I get to say, "Let's take a look at how much you've saved to be able to travel."
That's awesome. And I guess there are also people that when they retire, they don't want to just retire and travel. Like some people actually want to start a business. You mentioned that, Alison, right?
Yeah.
So they might actually want to start a second career or a third or fourth career, depending on who they are. And they might want to start a part-time business. I know my mom did some consulting after she retired. And I'm sure there's others out there as well that want to do that kind of thing.
Who wants to drive a bus?
Expertise and the experience that they bring to the table just to mentor youth. We really need to start looking at ways of being more creative in bringing these different generations together that need each other. You know, the kids nowadays, there's violence happening in the classrooms that I think a lot of us aren't even aware of. That how can we balance that? How can we bring seniors in maybe as part of the solution to these kind of issues? And how do we, encourage the retirees to use all of this experience and knowledge that they have in meaningful ways so that they feel like they're still contributing and still, working towards their purpose. And that's something that we talk about a lot in our workshop. Is just that purpose. That's really a key driver for us in life. And it's important to understand what your purpose is. And we kind of walk through that a little bit and get people to really consider what your purpose is, as well as what you might see as barriers to getting to that purpose, because it's never too late to start working towards your purpose. And then how do you get past those barriers? And that's when kind of Jacqueline and I can tag team with different things, from the financial aspect, from the, all the other aspects that I cover. And so we have a lot of fun in the workshop, just talking about all these different themes and get people dreaming, get people really considering that anything is possible, because anything is possible. Yeah. And we know that, and we want to instill that in others so that they feel free to do whatever they want on their terms, basically. I forgot to mention it's at the
I love the way you said that.
New
Whatever
Edinburgh
it is
Field.
On your terms. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And we'll put all the information about that workshop in below in our
Okay.
notes. So check below, guys. Okay.
Thank you.
And I love the idea of creating multi-generational activities
Mhm.
Fantastic.
so that
idea.
people work together, right? You bring in the youth with those that are more wise and put them together. And how can you create a synergy in that environment to benefit all generations? I think that's a wonderful idea. That might be a
You
good
know,
part.
it's not an original idea. It's really honoring Indigenous wisdom. That's the fire that we sit across the fire from the generation that we're supposed to be working with, and that's a tradition that we, I think, need to, bring and incorporate in across cultures. Yeah.
I agree. My parents retired shortly after or shortly before my daughter, who's 16, was born. And when we moved into the area near them, my mom babysat my daughter 2 or 3 days out of the week when I went back to work part-time. And I am so thankful that they did that, because my daughter has such a well-rounded thought and personhood because she learned from my parents. My mom is she enjoys gardening, so she has a homestead. And so my daughter learned how to pump water. She learned how to garden. She learned how to ground flour. I mean, all these beautiful aspects that we don't get as much now. And she's learned them all. And that is because she spent all that time with my mom. And my mom was happily young enough to get down on the ground and sit and play with her and color and draw. And my mom has tons of friends in the community and introduced her to all these different people with all these different views. And I think that needs to happen now. Like, our kids need that. I think it's amazing. I think it's combining the generations, and so we don't have this nitpicking of, millennials against Gen X's and all this kind of stuff. While it's funny, the little reels and stuff you see on Facebook and Instagram are funny. It's sad.
It's very separating.
Really should be combining them together and learning from each other. I just think it's amazing that that's something that you are striving to do, Alison. It's combining those generations and bringing them together. I think it's a great idea.
And secondarily, it helps combat ageism, which all isms are terrible and we have to put a stop to. But ageism is one of those silent ones. Kids don't even know the term. It's something that's real, and it's something we have to just stop, period.
Yeah. I was blessed, like your daughter, Heidi. I was blessed that I grew up living with my granny with us, and I learned all sorts of arts and crafts. She used to knit, and we'd do crafts together, and I got the value of volunteering because she started the TAP program, telephone assurance program, at St. Pat's Home years ago. And so I was there with her when she was doing that, and I would be helping in the seniors home when I was like 10 to 14 kind of age group. And it was a super valuable experience for me growing up, and really, paved the way for me to step into working in home care, actually, because I was very comfortable with the multi-generational workplace. So I think it is such a valuable experience and those of us that have had that kind of experience, I think we do tend to work in these kinds of fields, and because we understand the value of having that.
A lot of empathy in it.
Yeah.
In learning and being with an older generation, depending on whatever generation you are, even the next generation up, you can learn so much, and you can teach them so much as well. I think it's just really important.
I agree.
Alison, are you going to define what ageism is? Because we all know what the other isms are,
Sexism and
racism and
racism.
feminism and wish I was here-isms.
Yeah. Well, ageism is just what what it sounds like. And I think it might have been coined by CARP, the Canadian Association of Retired People.
Yeah.
That really, it's one of the main things that they work on. And it basically means, ageism is when somebody who's younger has mistreats somebody who's older than them, basically. So
It's like discrimination against those
it's
of an
exactly.
older age, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's an easier one to fix once you identify it. These things, it's bringing it out in the open is the first step always in ending all of these isms. And it's I bring it up whenever I speak in front of a group of youth, and they are not aware of the fact that this is even going on. I think it's a subconscious thing. So I think talking about it, we need to be talking about this. We need to be talking about death more, like I mentioned as well. These are things, we bring them out into the open and put them out there, and it allows us to really look at it and deal with it as a society, as individuals, and as a society.
Well, that's how
conversation. And sorry, go ahead, Tanys.
That's how we bring things to light, right?
Yeah.
Is to talk about them. If it's in the dark and it's there, you can't change it if we don't bring it out into the light and talk about it.
I think that's the most important thing about anything. I mean, you both mentioned talking about things and discussing things that used to be sensitive. Finances are a huge conversation that nobody wants to have. And I've learned, it took me a while, but I've learned that I am perfectly fine discussing finances with anybody else. I will happily tell you my experiences of when I was younger, and I made mistakes. My husband made mistakes, and he went through a divorce. And we learned that, we went through a consumer proposal because we had no other option. There was nothing else. We didn't know what to do. Yeah. And it was the best decision I have ever made in my life. And I will not regret it at all, ever, ever, ever. And I will shout to the rooftops, ask for help. It doesn't hurt anybody but you. Ask for help. And so I think it's very important that you bring to light this, Jacqueline, and the discussion and how important it is. And it also is important. My parents are in their late 70s. So it's also getting to the point where I need to have that conversation with my parents who have already retired. And it also leads into other conversations like the advanced care directives that you were talking about, Alison, and end of life and all this sort of thing. We need to talk to our families. We need to talk to our loved ones about these things. And that you're advocating for that, I think, is fantastic. And I will shout it from the rooftops for you. I think it's very important to discuss finances. Yeah. So I do have a question that I mostly kind of directed towards Jacqueline, but I do have a question that when you're discussing with your family member as a retiree or as you get older, how do I word this? I had somebody mention to me that they were having a lot of problems. Their father had passed away and they couldn't pay their mother's bills because she didn't have access to the bank account. So do you have any experience in that? Because I think that is definitely a big topic for a lot of people, especially if they haven't planned ahead and thought about these things. How does one go about doing that? Is it possible? Can you plan ahead for that? Do you know anything about that aspect of finances?
It's back in the day where he took care of the finances and she didn't have to. It was not her requirement to know anything about the money, including anything about bank accounts. And then the passing of the member occurs. And so you go to the lawyer and the lawyer asks you those questions. So where's the money? Where's the savings? Who's the house name in? Is there a mortgage on the house? Is there a lien on the house? And continue to ask these questions. And she sits and she can't take a long, deep breath because now she's nervous. I have no idea. So then she has to go to the family. And, you know, it's one of the dirty secrets. I had no idea. What is she going to do? So now she's incorporating a lawyer who has to do the work. She has to sign off on it. Is there a will? I talk about that in my book. It's the 5th chapter about will and estate. We need to have one, or the government will make the decisions for us.
Yeah.
And so she has to be, if it's a her, she needs to be really careful about that. No, I have to stand in. And she probably wants a family member to be with her to help her in the discussion. So what else do I need? She'll have a list of what she's going to have to require. When she goes to the bank, did she sign off on anything? Is there a security box that she didn't know about? She has to find the home branch that she's at and ask the questions and let them know, here's my issue and I have a lawyer and I have family who's going to help me answer these questions.
Yeah.
And that's not the time to be afraid. That is grateful gratitude. There's people who will stand up and help. We've heard those stories before, and there's help out there. You need a lawyer.
And wouldn't that be a great tool for them to have, is somewhere that they can write that information down as a couple, right?
Yeah.
I think not just for seniors, I think for anybody, that you write that stuff down somewhere so that you've got, you know, a place that you can just go if something happens, because you don't want to really be in that situation and not have that information, no matter who you are. So having a tool that would put out all of those different bank account, what's the password, bank account, of course, keep it somewhere secure, but somewhere where you both know where it is, right? And that way access is easier for everyone if something were to happen.
Now,
So
legally,
that's a tool that I provide clients that I'm doing. Advanced Care Directives also includes all of those passwords, all that everything, your will, your living will, as well as everything you want related to your end of life care, your afterlife care, and how you would like to see everything about your funeral, and all of these decisions. If you can make them in advance, it's a very selfless act, because then you don't have again, you're right, absolutely, that you can't do this too early. We should all have this in place, because we don't know when we might pass. It can happen very quickly sometimes. And having everything in place, just then you don't cause conflict within the family, which is, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be causing that kind of conflict with your loved ones. And it often happens when the paperwork and all of those final wishes aren't in place. So I have everything in one place, and that's what I provide people. And it's so helpful just to know that it's all covered in one. It takes a while to work through, to get all the information consolidated, but you can take a little bit of time and just have it in that safe place. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm following you.
Yeah.
That's one thing to check off my list. Yeah. And
Definitely.
And, I think many of us have those stories about family members, that they weren't able to put it in place what they really wanted. That is absolutely required for all of the family members to know who's doing what, who wants to do what. Does she want this mug or the other mug? And while we're talking about life passing, end of life, that also is about relationships too.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that during COVID, that's when people got to speak more often with each other, or not want to speak more often with each other. And COVID allowed what's called the gray divorces. So you've got gray, and it doesn't matter what age you are. I'm gray. ish, potentially. But it is the, did you have that conversation with your mate about what you really wanted? Did work allow you not to be together, to have to ask the questions? You know, I'm going on a trip with work and I can't wait to go hiking. Meanwhile, it's, I cannot wait to sit on the couch and read a book. Go have a good time, you two. And then you find out, do you really want that life? You signed a contract, some call it a marriage contract, and maybe that's not it. Maybe I'd like not to leave my spouse while I go hiking. I'd love to have someone to go hiking with. Maybe I want to share the books with my spouse and sit on the couch and enjoy a glass of wine. Maybe it's that moment where you make the choice. Gray divorces, it's trending. It's trending. And we get to have that conversation about, you know, before 40, after 60. I have a couple of friends who've chosen to end that sort of relationship. They're soulmates, but they don't have to be husband and wife. And so they've taken their step out. Good for them for asking for help. They own homes. They own big ticket items. And how are they going to deal with it? They want to have a conversation. There are financial planners out there specific for this. You know, open the door and know that if that's what you want, it's time. For me, I go over the numbers. Who's going to keep the house or not? Where's the money going to go or not? Is there an insurance policy or not? Those are questions that the gray divorce encompasses. And I have to say,
Okay. In this case, both of you deal with a lot of advanced planning. So things that could happen 10, 15, 20, 25 years, depending on how early. So how frequently should you come back to these paperwork, this document, this decision, this conversation? How often should you come back? I mean, I'm 46, my husband's 55. We have an idea of what we want. We don't have anything formal, which I keep saying, like every 6 months, okay, we need to do this, we need to do this. But how, I gotta write my list. But how frequently should you come back? And because things change, like you said, the gray divorce, I mean, your situation can change and your whole life changes. So how often should we do that?
I would say anytime there's a significant change, you need to change your paperwork. Anything that needs to be reflected in the paperwork should be reflected right away. So
Right away. Okay.
yeah, and it's a lot easier than you'd think. You can do a lot of this. Like I help people save money by not having to go through lawyers for a lot of this work, and then it's yours. You own it. You can make those changes yourself.
What sort of things can you do for that kind of planning that doesn't require an actual lawyer to sign off on things? What sort of things could you do?
Oh, you can do most things without a lawyer, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, you should follow, for example, if you're not going through a lawyer for your will, you should follow, you should have some kind of a template that you're working with at a minimum, just to ensure that you have the right wording, that you have your bases covered.
That's something you can do, though, is help guide people with a will without a lawyer?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You actually could write your will on a little sticky note and it would be legally binding.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Yes.
you get mixed messages when you watch TV shows and movies and stuff, and hearing all these different stories from people. Well, my experience was this. So it's nice to know that in essence, it is that easy to do it.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
I think it's probably more if there's people that are contesting stuff that it becomes more of a thing, right?
Which would also be difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandmother, when she moved into a retirement home, her daughters came to visit and they literally post-it noted everything. And then she recorded it. And so when she passed a few years ago, it was like, okay, done, you know, aside from the physical part of moving, of dividing everything up and transporting it, they knew there was no argument at the time. So you could grieve and spend time together and enjoy each other's support and talk about your loved one. And there was no arguments. And I think that was a fantastic way to do it.
Yeah, that's huge.
Communication, planning, and it allows you to spend time with the important things at that time. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, with the graying divorce, I get to do mortgages. They're called reverse mortgages, so that they can use the money to do the things they'd like to do, which is travel. So they're going to use the equity in that home to be able to, there's a program where they only have to pay their property taxes. That's all they have to think about. I did that for my grandmother. And so it's a reverse mortgage, it's called, or the Canada Income Home Plan. And so while you use the equity in your home and you reverse it. So you use the money, that's called equity, to help your grandchildren go to university, if that's the case. Maybe you're going to, because a good friend of mine decided to do the PhD that she never was able to get to. Reverse it so that you can do it without crying about it. No one wants a regret. That's in our word that I get retirement. No one wants to regret anything. So why not use that opportunity?
If your mortgage is paid off, that you can do that.
No.
No.
Let's say it's a $500,000 property. You have a $200,000 mortgage, and we're going to use 50% of the property and utilize the equity in it. So with the mortgage works. And then you can always say, this is good, this is great, thank you so much. I was just talking to Alison and she said, maybe this is what I want to consider now.
You are the dynamic duo then, aren't you?
Oh my gosh, that means we need an outfit. Going back.
Spandex.
Oh, Wonder Twin powers activate. Yeah.
You know, it gets back to that. We are really, more than anything in this workshop, we're trying to get people to see past these barriers, these obstacles, whether they're financial, whether they're emotional, whatever they are, mental barriers, and just dream and make those dreams happen. Put the plans down, get to work on them, and it's a lot of fun working with people in that way and really getting them to explore, what do I really want? And then we can help them to make it happen. I like that dynamic duo. Love that.
You two are the dynamic duo. You make things happen.
Exactly.
And at the workshop, it's interesting because many people are bringing their friends, not necessarily family, but bringing friends to it. Why don't you come out? There's free snacks, there's free refreshments, a couple giggles with now strangers. Now think about it. When they were working, perhaps they were in a place where everyone was knocking at their door saying, hey, good to see you, good morning. And now they're not. Now you're in a place where it's okay to be a stranger and enjoy some snacks. Hey, how are you? What's life like for you? What's your hobby? What would you like to do? And Alison talked about volunteering. We have mentors and we are mentorees. So whether we know it now, would like to know about it, that's that conversation we get to have. I know I'm with Invest Ottawa and Futurepreneurs. They're always looking for people who have lived it, who now want to teach it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely one way that, you know, people with all of the wisdom can pass it on, right?
Yeah.
Because those
And
programs are
listening,
amazing.
letting people listen to that and giving them the outlet to speak. So how
Mhm.
many workshops do you guys do? Is this just a new thing that you've just started, or are you doing this kind of regularly?
It's really based on demand. So, like with anything, we'll put one together if we another one in the future. At this time, we don't have any future dates selected. We might try and move around the city a little bit to make it more accessible to other parts of the city, because it is Ottawa's a big kind of spread out city, so it's nice to move it around a little bit. And speaking of accessibility, all of one of the things that we committed on very early on was that all of our events would be 100% wheelchair accessible for real, including washrooms. So that's really important as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I guess
So to be determined, I suppose, you know, if it's something that we hear people would like us to recreate again in the new year, then we would go ahead with that, as long as it's not falling at the time when we're down hosting a retreat in Ecuador, which is in mid-February. So
So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that retreat?
sure.
goody.
Well, we love working together, and so you know, the fact that I'm a retreat leader, retreat host, and have been for over a decade, and I have a little retreat space in the Ecuadorian Andes that is in one of the most biodiverse places in the world. It's just paradise. And here we have this wonderful yoga teacher, not just a yoga teacher, but a teacher of yoga teachers. And, you know, just somebody that you'd want to spend a week in paradise with. And Jacqueline and I just teamed up and we created this wonderful program together that includes a lot of really fun daily activities, from chocolate tours to, it's one of the birding hotspots of the entire world, my little village called Mindo. And so we're doing a lot of nature-based activities and some culture-based activities with family and friends there. It's an all-inclusive retreat that one of my best friends there caters. She is the best chef I've ever experienced. So it's really kind of one of those, and it's an experience for all the senses.
I thought you were going to talk about the butterflies.
Oh, and the butterflies. So birds and butterflies and chocolate and orchids are the four things that people come to the village for. Butterflies, we export butterflies to all the butterfly gardens around the world. Like, they just naturally are there. It's in a little valley, and but there are actual butterfly producers, and there are places you can go. So we're going to go to a couple of different butterfly tours where they land all over you and you can feed them out of your hand, and also a couple of hummingbird tours. So there are 27 species right in my village, and you know, you'll see them as you're eating your meals just right on the river. It's a pretty spectacular experience.
So why Ecuador? What drew you there?
Oh, well, I went down originally to work on an environmental project. It's going on 27 years now. So I ended up settling there for several years, and I've owned a home there ever since. So my kids were all born there, and you know, it's my second home. It's my second country. I still sit on a board there. I'm still really active in that community. And so I own a sustainable travel business, and that's what I did for the 10 years leading up to COVID. And I'm still running it's skeletally. So I still have some trips and retreats that are going on, but it's not my full-time endeavor anymore. But yeah, so that was Ecuador. Environmental work was a big part of my career as well. So.
Jacqueline, you go down too, and so you do the yoga aspect of it, or
Yeah,
do
I
you just
will be doing yoga on your yoga mats, She's got, when you take a look at the photos, she's got the chairs that you'll do yoga, because I do chair yoga as well. So we've got the chair yoga, yoga on mats, the meditation, and listening. How often have we thought it would be a great idea to place our feet on the ground and just feel a little bit better about life as we know it, as we took a breath, lifted our shoulders, took them back and released them down and thought, this is good. This is really good.
Like getting that environment, it'd be easier.
You would think. So the other thing to talk about is the fact that you do chair yoga.
I do.
Because yoga is for everybody. Right? I know there's a lot of older people that might think they can't do yoga because they see all these young things doing yoga.
Oh, the millennials? Yeah.
It's for everybody.
It is. And that's why I teach group fitness. And I was teaching group fitness. It was a low impact class that I was teaching at the YMCA and be a volunteer. And as a single mom at the time, I didn't have a babysitter for my daughter. I said, you've got to come with me. I don't have a babysitter. You're in my class. You can participate. I'd love it if you participated. So there she is. This class happened to be for the Breast Cancer Action Committee. And they love me, I love them. And one of the students came in, she had a helper with her. She had half a leg missing. It's an hour-long class. And this beautiful woman, Amy, with half a leg missing, did the whole class. She had a chair. I said to my daughter when all was said and done, because she was shocked. And I said, my little girl, you can never tell me you can't do anything. You just witness a miracle. And then she said, okay, are we going to have ice cream now, Mom? And so
Priorities.
So yes, yoga. Then I began teaching yoga after my group fitness classes. And it was for everyone. People who had an issue with hips, with knees, with ankles, with wrists. There's ways to come into yoga. And it starts with that breath. It starts with being okay with who you are. I had a good friend of mine who she was going to have hip surgery. And she said, I need to come to your yoga class to strengthen the muscles around my vertebrae, around my joints. And it was actually my physiotherapist said that was something I should take a look at. Said, I have you. It's all good. And I said, that's great. So we'll use a chair and we'll bring weights because I'm a Red Iron yoga instructor as well. So we can do yoga with weights too. I know someone said, no, that's not possible. Everything's possible. So,
yeah. And I know you teach it. And you teach chair yoga in a number of places. Yeah. And so for those that can't get out, I know that you're doing some online.
Yes.
As well. So we can put the link in the below in case people would like to know that. And you're also teaching it at community centers, right? A few community centers around the city as well. So,
yeah. So if you have time, I have time for you.
Awesome.
Really nice way of saying it.
And are you open to doing like individual yoga sessions with people if they're looking for somebody to be very hands-on and go to their home to do it, for instance? Is that something you would consider?
And that's a really great question. I was in one of my it's called Phoenix. So it's a business exchange group. And we all get together and we talk about our business and who can we help? Who can we refer? Oh, there's someone who might be interested in this. There was a gentleman who said, I know you talk a lot about mortgages, but you wrote that book. Do you do private yoga? I was like, I do, as a matter of fact. Why do you ask? My wife would love it. So I drove out to their home every Sunday between 1 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I spent an hour with them. We did 8 classes together. They smiled through it. He said, you helped my relationship. Thank you so much. Because that's what we do, Alison and I. It's like, how can we bring this all together? Because when you allow yourself to open, people see it, and then you allow others to open with you. So yes, I do that.
Awesome. That's beautiful that it helped the relationship. I think that's something, certainly with me being in yoga this year, I've learned that, like, it's very, it helps all aspects. It's not just for the physical, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's important to note as well.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Alison, what exactly is an end-of-life doula?
Oh, it's quite new in Canada, whereas it's an established part of the dying process in the US. It's been around for a lot of years. And I actually did my certification with an American company just because I found the perfect teacher through an institute called Doula Givers. And really, it's about every aspect of dying, from tight symptom management, helping the family to, set the right stage, and really to right from it can start as early as the day of diagnosis of some kind of terminal illness, or it can be later on. It really depends on the individual, but it's helping provide guidance and support for both the individual who is at end of life as well as all of their loved ones. And there's no two people alike, so every situation is different. It can often involve, doing a life review and really talking through things, and it can talking through what's on the other side, and who we are as human beings. We're really spiritual beings having a human experience, and what does that mean really, and how, talking through the different phases, helping the family to know what to expect is a really big part of it. It can really support you, as well as encouraging people to slow things down when it comes to the time of death, so that you take the time to really be together and focus on the important things. And that really, if you do that time together as a family, as loved ones, and it really will help shorten your time of grief. Often, generally speaking, it will. It's it's a necessary thing. It's the way we always used to manage death, and it's something we've forgotten over the last 100 or so years. It wasn't that long ago that we were doing this at home, not in institutions. And we were part of the process. We were all part of the process, and it was very different. So that community death piece is a big part of this too. Just really, slowing it down, and just making it real, so that we're actually participating in the process and honoring our loved one who is transitioning. So it's everything, that those comfort factors, setting the stage to be beautiful, but also reflective of the family's needs, and then helping them with the planning, from the advanced care planning right through to I can help write a eulogy, all of those kind of preparations as well. So we're whatever needs, we basically do whatever needs to be done for loved ones, as well as the person who's at end of life.
Now, would you be there physically, or is it just more of, or could you be there physically, or is it more of helping others be able to be there? I'm just thinking doula. I think of birth doulas and all this kind of stuff, and generally they're there with you, supporting you and holding your hand during the whole miracle of birth. Would that be something you would do as well if asked?
Ideally, particularly at some of those key moments. There's also a term called teledoulaing. It's a verb, to provide that support, either by phone or by Zoom, or different means. So it really, it depends on where you are geographically. I'm looking to start serving some more remote communities that don't have access to end-of-life doulas, to be able to support them. So that would be probably strictly by Zoom and phone, unless, you know, it would really depend on the situation. But I think nothing beats being in person, in it, particularly in those delicate times, to be there, to give a hug.
Mhm.
There's
And there's a spiritual component to all of that too, I'm sure, right?
oh,
Because
absolutely.
there's, you know, just as many people as there are on the earth, there's different spiritual beliefs and practices, and everybody has their own way of looking at it and stuff. So that must have to be part of your practice, I would think, is, you know, moving with theirs and being part of their beliefs and spiritual practices.
Yes, and I would say that that's the biggest component of being an end-of-life doula. Absolutely. So, you know, whether that's working with their own beliefs and helping them to clarify, it's also introducing them to some new concepts. But it's, again, it's a very individual process, really based on what the individual needs, what their family, their loved ones need, and providing that at the time. That's certainly, I've been very dedicated to a spiritual path my whole life, and so I have a lot of experience and to draw from, and that's the most gratifying and the most, well, it's the most fulfilling, but it's also the most important part of the service of an end-of-life doula as well, for
Mhm.
sure.
If I can pipe in for just a moment, my family, we just went through a situation where my brother passed away. He's in Calgary, I'm in Ottawa, and most of us are in Toronto. And we all got this call, this SOS saying, you got to get on Zoom right now. To get that call, I got on Zoom. I went and I ran over to my daughter's place. I said, we got to get on Zoom because there's an issue. It was a hospital that called us and said, your brother needs to hear your voice.
That's
So I don't,
beautiful.
here's hoping that they had an end-of-life doula there with him because his family wasn't there with him.
In age, we're all spread out all over the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we learned anything from COVID, we are still just a video chat away from each other as well.
Yeah.
And that's
The
amazing
fact
that the
that
hospital did that.
with technology, to be able to connect with him on a moment's notice like that, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But
sure.
also that people around him knew that he needed someone like you to help him through that process. How much time did he have?
Yeah.
And so he did.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
No,
And
it's
you
an
mentioned,
honor to serve people at that stage in life. It's truly an honor, and it's needed. And some people don't even know that this service exists. And it's, as I say, it's just really growing. It's just starting in Canada. So, yeah.
awesome. And you mentioned doing a series in retirement residences. And
Yes.
you want
Yeah.
to
I'm
say
just.
just a quick word about that before we finish up?
Because it's the next
Absolutely.
and best step, you know.
Yes. Yeah. So it's um, embracing transition and life cycles. That's what it's called. It's just a free talk that I'm giving, very participatory. It's short, an hour, including questions and answers. So I talk for actually just half an hour, and it's really just, you know, trying to talk through fears more than anything, and to identify people's needs, their questions, to so that they can hear each other in community as well. That's one of the positive outcomes of it as well, because it starts building that community within the home as well. So it's yeah, it's been very well received. So just starting to do that, and I'm happy to um, do this in any retirement home, regardless of size. It's something that I think if people could benefit from hearing about this, talking, then I'm happy to make the time to show up and facilitate that conversation. I'm also hosting a what I'm calling open conversations on death, dying, and grief. And I'm hosting my first one like this on November 5th, which is a Wednesday, I believe. No, it's a Tuesday. I'll check. November 5th, we can put that down in the information as well. And that's open to the public. And that will be in the afternoon at the New Edinburgh Field House as well. So again, just helping people to work through those conversations. That one's going to be 90 minutes. It's a little bit longer. We do a round table in that sense. It's less of a presentation, more of a facilitated conversation around death, dying, and grief. And it really helps people to talk through it. It helps to be heard, because we've all have our stories. We all have our pain, and it's one of the ways of getting through this together.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, it has been a wonderful time with you two ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today on Compassionate Conversations. You bring a wealth of knowledge and experience, both of you. And so thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Tanys Coughlan and Heidi Gagne, My Place Home Care, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.